You realize you are pretty privileged, right? Hence you find India comfortable. Not sure if I'm sensing a very sarcastic tone there, but I'm gonna answer this question in the kindest way possible. Hi, my name is Ivana and I've been living in Bangalore now for over 5 years. In this video, I'm going to answer some questions about India from a foreigner perspective, about my life in Bangalore, and of course, some personal questions. If you have any specific questions about why I chose India to live in or why I live in Bangalore, I have dedicated videos about that linked in the description below. Without any further delays, let's just get into the first question. Who is your biggest inspiration? My parents, hands down. During the 90s, a big war broke out in the former Yugoslavia region and all those countries got separated, making my parents suddenly a mixed marriage couple. You can kind of compare it with the Indian partition, and it became impossible for them to stay in former Yugoslavia. So they took my brother and me and moved to the Netherlands as refugees, where they had to start from scratch in their mid-30s. Imagine, they had to learn a whole new language, with the Dutch language being a really, really difficult language. They had to completely get reschooled. My dad is a doctor, my mom is an economist. In order to get their diplomas acknowledged from college, they had to, go through all these new tests and prove themselves again as professionals. My dad worked again as a doctor in the Netherlands, and my mom got completely reschooled to take care of babies. So every time I'm dealing with hardships, especially moving to a new country and starting from scratch, I always think about my parents and how they forcefully had to shift countries and start from scratch. Yeah, they're my biggest inspiration in life. You realize you are pretty privileged, right? Hence you find India comfortable. Not sure if I'm sensing a very sarcastic tone there, but I'm gonna answer this question in the kindest way possible. I am 100% privileged, but do keep in mind that even in the Netherlands, I was living a very, very privileged life, which I fought very hard to build for myself. Like I mentioned before, my parents came to the Netherlands as refugees. We had nothing. The four of us slept in a bedroom that is as big as my office for a couple of years without having any security if we would be able to build a future in the Netherlands. I went to college and I got 2 master's degrees. I worked in the corporate world in the Netherlands for 6 years, where in the end I was earning a very, very nice salary. I lived in Amsterdam, opposite of the World Trade Center. I have friends in the Netherlands who are literally celebrities. So if you think that my life in India is more privileged and more comfortable than it was in the Netherlands, it definitely is not. With that, all that being said, I feel more comfortable in India and I love living in India. Hence, I took some really, really big hits in terms of my personal life, but also in terms of my finances to make my life in India possible. I hope that clears up your doubts or questions about my privileges in India. What advice would you give to someone who would like to move to India? Think from a perspective where you are contributing to the growth and economy of India. Because if you just want to retire here, live an easy, comfortable life and not contribute anything back to a growing country like India, I don't think you should come here. India right now really needs people who have a certain type of skill set, a certain mentality, who see potential in growing India and contributing to that growth. So my biggest advice would be to think from that perspective. What can you contribute if you are actually moving and living here? Any advantages you get because of being a foreigner in India? In the Netherlands, I am actually considered too white, which made me very insecure for a lot of years. I don't think it's very diplomatic to say, but coming to India and getting praised for my fair skin actually gave me a lot of confidence and made me perceive myself as more beautiful. But then actually it is also a little bit of a double-edged sword because I get a lot more stares. I really have to think about if I'm wearing Western clothes, I will get a lot more sometimes unwanted attention and people wanting to take selfies with me, which then makes me feel uncomfortable. Sometimes it's good for my confidence and sometimes it makes me uncomfortable. But yeah, that's just the reality of being a foreigner in India. Have you ever seen IPL? If yes, then which is your favorite team? Fun fact, I never used to watch IPL and I still really don't, but just recently the Netherlands got into cricket. They played against India where they got annihilated by Virat Kohli. That was, I think, the first time where I really sat down and watched a cricket match with suspense. It was so interesting, but the rules for me are so incredibly complex that it's quite difficult for me to watch. Maybe if the Netherlands gets into it and you have this whole suspense suspense between the Netherlands and India playing against each other, I think that makes it a little bit more interesting for me to watch. Thoughts on moving from Europe to India with a small child? I think your life with a small child in India might sometimes be a little bit easier because India has such a huge family culture. And on the other hand, sometimes a little bit harder because sometimes the logistics of getting around with a child might be a little bit more complex. Sometimes there are not baby changing stations in even five-star hotels, but on the other hand, children in restaurants are completely accepted and tolerated, whereas in Europe, that might be more of a taboo. I think it's just a different way of navigating life with a small child, and there are, of course, benefits and some disadvantages that come with it automatically. How does your family react to you staying, or rather, I should say, love being in India? They are crazy supportive. My parents have always supported anything that my brother and me want to do, obviously within a context where they want us to be responsible and to be safe. All my best friends, the people who I've known since my childhood, they are so on board, so loving, so supportive. Everybody's on board as long as I'm happy, and they're always willing to help me out with whatever I need. Generally, India is called land of spirituality. As you are a foreigner, did you experience any spiritual event or thought in your life in India, or just enjoying material pleasures? I did a yoga teacher training, which was, as cliche as it sounds, completely life-changing. Until this day, I meditate every single day for an hour. I do my yoga practice every single week. It has completely shifted my life. It's quite a personal journey, hence why I don't address it a lot in public. But also in my newsletter, I've actually addressed why I specifically don't highlight that part about India a lot. If you look at India, I feel economic growth is needed and not necessarily people coming here, wanting to travel for free because of spiritual reasons. So in case you're interested, you should definitely subscribe to my newsletter because I share more of those behind the scenes thoughts there instead of putting it out for everyone to see on the internet. Did you find inner peace after living in India for some years? From the moment that I landed on Indian soil, I felt peace for the first time in my life. And that has never gone away. That sense of inner peace that I experienced from the beginning is actually what makes it possible for me to live here and really, really enjoy my life. Would like to see your daily vlog. Also, are you happy in India with your professional progress? I used to do daily vlogs, in case you don't know. I started back in 2015 and I quit in 2018 because it was taking too much of a toll on my mental health. I felt that constantly people had certain expectations of me to travel places, to go places, where I was really busy setting up a life in India. Also, daily vlogging can have some really serious repercussions in a way where people start to stalk you, they get way too attached, and sometimes it also has some legal repercussions. So daily vlogs are definitely not coming back on my channel, but weekly vlogs I enjoy making a lot these days. So if you guys enjoy that as well, let me know down in the comments below and we can do weekly vlogs. Am I happy in India with my professional progress? Yes, I am. I am extremely happy with my professional progress in India. It turned out way better than I expected. I am surrounded by the most amazing, ambitious, and crazy talented entrepreneurs who constantly push me in my entrepreneur journey. Also, I have to say, because the Netherlands is so well connected economically with India, there are so many opportunities for me here that I really get inspired on a daily basis to grow and am excited for what the future has to bring. Hi Ivana, you have previously discussed the differences between doing business in India versus the Netherlands. Have you come across any obstacles/barriers as a female doing business in India? For sure, because the business culture in India is predominantly rooted in relationships and communities. So if you look at the overall business picture in India, I would say it is still ruled by men. And if you look at the situations where a lot of business is discussed over, for instance, drinks or dinners, it's difficult for me to get access to that as a woman without it becoming inappropriate. Sometimes it's also difficult for me to take meetings with men one-on-one. All of this definitely makes it more difficult for me to get certain opportunities, but I have to say the men who are around me and who are helping me are definitely also opening a lot of doors for me. Indian women also face this. You are missing out on certain opportunities because it is inappropriate for you to take parts in certain informal meetings where, it's a group of men, and as a woman, it's just inappropriate to sit on those meetings or take meetings with a man one-on-one. It's there. You just have to work around it, what to do. What's a hardship you recently came across and how did you overcome it? Also, something that I addressed in my newsletter is how 2022 was very problematic for me because I met a lot of people who pretended to be my friends, but actually in the end, dun 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 dun, turned out that they just were exploiting me and only trying to be friends with me because they gained certain benefits from that. How I resolved that is by putting a lot of boundaries in place. I rarely meet people who are not actively contributing to my business or who I haven't known for years as my friends. Also, I barely take any calls. 99% of my calls go straight to my manager, so people have a lot less access to me. I barely go to events anymore because, again, I feel I'm surrounded there with a lot of people who want to take advantage of me instead of actually giving back and contributing to my business as well. This has definitely paid off because the first 2 months of 2023 were so peaceful, so joyous, and full of growth. Can you speak Serbian? Mogu I sve razumem. Mogu I da pričam, ali malo mi je teže da pričam pošto kad sam otišla iz Srbije i Bosne, bila sam samo 8 godina, znači treba mi malo više vremena da mislim na našem jeziku, ali sve mogu da razumem i mogu da pričam ako je ono malo lakše konverzacije. It seems like you're more happier these days. What changed and how is Bambi? What changed is that I put some very, very strict boundaries in place, like I just mentioned, and that has created a lot of mental peace for myself. I'm only surrounded by people who really genuinely have my best interests in mind, and obviously my favorite pup, Bambi, is a therapy dog. She is doing really well. She's getting very vocal. Hello. She is so active. She's doing really great. Thank you for noticing, actually. Do you still practice yoga, and any suggestions for someone not so flexible who is trying to give it a go? Yes, I definitely still practice yoga pretty much religiously. Every single week I will do my own yoga sesh. In case you don't know, I did a yoga teacher training and I practice my old yoga practice every week for 2 hours. Especially if you are not flexible, yoga is a very low threshold type of exercise and well-being for your body to get into. I would say just choose a beginner class. Don't make things complicated for yourself. You can also choose some beginner yoga videos on YouTube to start out with in your living room if you are conscious about your body or the fact that you're not so flexible. There are some really amazing yoga teachers on YouTube, so maybe that would be the easiest way for you to get into it. Which question surprised you the most? Let me know down in the comments below, and you can also leave new questions for the next Q&A. For now, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!